Welcome everyone to the latest episode of the Robcast. I am your host Rob, and today I have a very special guest to me. Jordan, how are you doing?
Great, thank you for having me.
Just to say a few things about Jordan: absolute academic weapon, academic nuclear bomb, if I might say. Very impressive character. Jordan, how do you respond to these things?
I started off slow in college, and I've been slowly ramping up ever since then. So there's an upwards trajectory to everything, and I take pride in that.
Hey man, as long as it's going up, it doesn't matter how fast. In today's episode title, which I'm actually pretty proud of. I thought Nosy was a good title. I thought Nosy was the best title. I thought it was my magnum opus, really. This one I think is the best. Shooting the shit.
Wow.
But today, me and Jordan, we're going to be talking about guns. Various things about it, and how they have impacted both of our lives. Jordan, how have guns affected you?
I think I first started getting into it when I was like a little kid, probably around like 6. I grew up in the city, and so when you're that young, you usually like to shoot the shit a lot and kind of go around just doing random things. So I had my dad buy me a Red Ryder BB gun, and I would shoot
Nice.
in like an alley. I would shoot at like Coke cans that I would find, and that's kind of how I got into firearms. And I always liked kind of just the whole mechanism of firearms. I liked being able to fix things and things like that. So it also translates into other things that I like, so like cars and things. I like to think of firearms as like adult Legos.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I've kept up with it. And it's just fun to go to the range. I mean, the community is always very nice. And so that's been my relationship so far.
Yeah. I have a very similar experience. My dad used to buy me Red Ryder BB guns. As you can see over there, I brought mine down from a hunting cabin for all the rats in our house. Haven't been able to get one yet, but if they do pop their heads out, I'm gonna shoot them with my Red Ryder. I started shooting when I was a wee little lad, and I've always been hunting, always been shooting. Recently got into long range shooting, so it's always been there. You know what I mean? Always had the opportunity to shoot. So the first question on my list of questions for you, Jordan.
Okay. Yeah.
Best state for guns.
That's a hard one. I'd say there's tiers to this. I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a best state, but there's definitely states that are in tiers. So on the lower tier, you definitely have the restricted states with the assault weapons bans, like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, California, things like that, where they also have the handgun rosters, so you're not able to get whatever handgun that you want. It's kind of a more restricted environment. So there's places like that, and then there's places like Wisconsin that I believe they restrict the sale and transfer of SBRs, so you're not able to go into the NFA space if you're in Wisconsin. Or in Michigan, I think they restrict the sale of some rifles. Like you have to get a permit if you want a so-called assault weapon, and they have a duty to issue the permit as long as you meet all the requirements. However, you shouldn't need to go and purchase and ask the government if you can get the permit. So there's states like that where they don't have an assault weapons ban or anything like that.
They certainly make it harder.
Yeah, they make it just a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And then there's states where, like Georgia or Florida or Alaska, where you don't need any type of permit to carry a firearm as long as it's a pistol. There's no magazine restrictions. There's no unneeded red tape into anything. So there's not a best state in my opinion, but there's definitely tiers. And all of these states definitely fall into either one of those, where it's like full ban, they're not really about it at all. They go into kind of like just making it harder, but they let you have whatever you want, as long as you're willing to go through the hoops. And then there's states that just let you have whatever you want, and they don't get into it.
Yeah. I know for some states they like to get into it, and that kind of is more. It gets more prominent when you get in the NFA items, when you're already having to deal with the government, and then you also have to deal with people like the local government. It's overall not fun, but I do agree that there's definitely tiers. There isn't like a top top one state. I guess you. I mean, I'm noticing a lot of gun people are down in Florida or down in Texas. Maybe that's maybe that's culture mixed with the fact that it's not very restrictive.
I think yeah, it has to deal with the culture, not being restrictive, and you also have to remember that Texas and Florida have a lot of people.
Yeah.
So Texas, I believe, has like somewhere around like 30 million people, and Florida has like 19. So if you're going into those states, there's a lot of people there, and there's a very strong Second Amendment culture within there. So there's a lot of YouTubers and like social media personalities that are going in and they're making a lot of videos in Texas and Florida because there's a lot of people there. So of course there's a lot of content coming out versus somewhere in like Wyoming or Idaho where
Yeah.
there's like 10 people.
Yeah.
So
Where there's exactly 10 people.
exactly.
I was actually down in Wyoming once for a long range shooting school. Honestly, not that bad. I wouldn't mind living. I was down in Cody.
Hey, no, I listen. No shade on Wyoming or Idaho or anything like that. Those are beautiful places. However, there is something to be said that there's a lot less people.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot less exposure to whatever they want to kind of put out into the social media market
Yeah.
and everything like that.
Yeah. I can definitely see your point.
Yeah.
I can definitely see your point. I don't even think from like a hunting standpoint for guns. I think all those a lot smaller states, more rural, if you could say,
Yeah.
would definitely be more friendly to that. You see a lot more of the hunting content coming out of like Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, that whole region. But
Yeah.
but not so much like you go down to Tech. Well, I guess Texas does have like those like hog shoots. You ever see one of those around the back of like a Tacoma with like an M60?
I've seen people go up in helicopters and they use
Yeah.
the AR-15s and they like laser them down.
It's insane.
And so over in like Texas and Florida, they're more worried about like AR-15s, AK, semi-automatic rifles. I mean, of course they do a lot of hunting.
Yeah,
They do
yeah.
a lot of hunting, but I don't think that their culture is
They aren't like hunting rifles. They're
no.
Yeah.
They're to have fun with and
Yeah.
and to protect your home and everything. But up in like Wyoming and things like that, there's large expanses of land where like literally it's flat and nobody's around.
Yeah,
And
and
so
shoot
you're,
for like a mile.
yeah, and so
No,
you're gonna
no
need
way.
a rifle that does that.
Yeah. No, that's it's an interesting it's an interesting thing when you're trying to find like a state to live in or move to. You kind of got to take everything into account. You know, kind of got to take all these things into account that you wouldn't really think of. You know.
Yeah, no. So I've been looking up. I'm going to graduate soon. Pennsylvania is actually, a pretty good state, surrounded by a bunch of states that are a little more restrictive, such as like Maryland, New Jersey, and New York. But Pennsylvania actually has some pretty relaxed gun laws. I've lived here a couple of years, and I own quite a bit of firearms, and I've never run into any like place where I had to get like restrictions or where they make me run through some like un unnecessary tape. Like I go to the gun store in Pennsylvania here, and I buy a gun and I take it home on the same day. A lot of states that are a little more restrictive, they make you wait a couple days before you take a rifle or a pistol home.
Yeah.
I think Pennsylvania is definitely up there. It's definitely in the tier in which they don't really get involved.
Yeah. I know when I lived down in Washington, I had to wait like 30 days to pick up like a bolt action rifle, which it's just how it is. Even though Washington does have a hunting scene and it is in that area, they get kind of goofy with making you wait 30 days for every gun ever. It isn't like if you're getting like a saw or like an M60 where they're like, all right, maybe we should wait 30 days before we give. No, it's like a bolt action rifle. They're making you wait for.
Like, yeah, what happens if I'm a little unprepared and I don't buy the bolt action rifle before hunting season begins?
Yeah.
Then I'm kind of screwed because I have to wait these 30 days. But
yeah, no, it's you gotta. All laws get kind of goofy at a certain point. On to our next question. This one's very controversial. 5.56 versus 7.62.
So there's a couple arguments that need to be made. You first have to go through and look at your use case.
Yeah.
What are you using it for?
Varmint?
If you're using it for varmint,
big game?
Yeah.
Are we thinking about military outfit? Are we thinking about, or are we just thinking about stopping power?
Yeah, so that question has a lot of prongs that can be used for. If you're using it to hunt, let's just say deer or any type of hunting game,
Yeah.
Out at maybe 300 meters or 400 meters, I would go with a 7.62 NATO
Yeah.
because of the stopping power that it has, being a
Yeah.
30 caliber.
Yeah, and it just holds up more. Like it actually,
Yeah.
like it gets through both lungs and such. Like I think in Pennsylvania the lowest you can go is a 243. But don't say that just because, like the 22 caliber bullet isn't exactly going through a lot.
Yeah. When you're looking at a deer is a lot larger than a human being.
Yeah.
So 5.56 is definitely a lot more useful if you're looking to protect your home and you're looking to protect against humans.
Yeah.
5.56 is perfectly adequate.
Works great.
Yeah, it works great.
No,
the recoil is very manageable, just in
Yeah.
case you have to give your wife the rifle,
Yeah.
or you're trying to teach kids how to shoot. A 7.62 with a little bit more stout of recoil, it might put off a couple people,
Yeah.
such as like
So if you're a kid or if you have like a small stature,
yeah,
or if you're just new to guns, in general.
and then you also have to think about the self-defense aspect. Let's say you're trying to defend your house and everything. 7.62 is going to punch through a lot more walls than 5.56.
Yeah.
You have to think about the over penetration because you don't want to be shooting your cat in the next room.
Yeah.
Or God forbid your child. So it all depends on your use case. If you're hunting and you're using it straight for hunting, but you want a semi-automatic rifle,
Yeah.
so you can get fast follow-up shots, 7.62, 100%.
Yeah.
I would take that. However, if you're defending yourself in your home, or you're just kind of doing it for fun, for shooting,
Yeah.
5.56, just because of the cost, less over penetration, and also less recoil
Yeah.
for when you need to get very fast shots off during
Yeah.
those self-defense situations.
Yeah. I can definitely, I know they're trying to make, or I'm of the mind of I can handle recoil pretty well. I also generally live alone, so I don't really mind over penetration.
Yeah.
So I would personally want to get like a 308 or like 7.62 by 54. Personally, for me, just because I like the more stopping, or I like the idea of the more stopping power. But that's also to say, I understand I'm not everybody, and there is certainly a valid use case for 5.56. And in that scenario, I think like from like a hunting perspective, I don't really think there ever really is a preferred use case for a 5.56 over anything else. If you're like, I'd say like I think the smallest game that I would really consider like big game hunting, it's like a white-tailed deer. It's not even like that good. I'm sure you could do it. I'm sure it could be done, but there's enough other cartridges on the market that are just better and work better, that there's not a good reason to use a 5.56 when you can use anything else.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that that's a point. The biggest that I would really go for 5.56 is if you're hunting like foxes.
Oh yeah.
Or anything like that, small game.
If you're like predator hunting or like varmint hunting, like oh yeah, totally. Like they use I know for varmint like a big cartridge is like a 220 Swift, which is like a big it's like a 5.56 but a lot bigger. Is for that just because the main thing that dictates drop out to like 300 yards mostly is velocity, not really a ballistic coefficient, not weight. So the less time it's in the air, the less drop it has, which is why they're shooting like a 22 caliber bullet out at like 3,800 feet per second, and it's not going to drop that much, which is why they use it for varmint hunting as opposed to anything else.
So yeah, in conclusion, 7.62 versus 5.56. I think it's I don't know if it's the fairest comparison ever because 7.62 NATO is on a different level than 5.56. They're totally different use cases. If it's kind of like comparing 5.56 to a 9mm.
Yeah.
It's a totally different like size, weight, velocity.
It's like of course 5.56 is going to be better in a rifle, but it's going to be better in a pistol. You know what I mean? It's like, but now you have people making. They have like the 300 blackout now. You have like 7.62 by 39, which is essentially just 300 blackout. You have those that are meant to be more light recoiling, punch a bigger hole. I know my one buddy shot a caribou with his 300 blackout AR, and he said it worked fine. I personally, Um, because I have dedicated hunting rifles that are just better than that. I would not do that, but obviously it works.
Yeah, if you only own one or two rifles, you could definitely get away with a 300 blackout to go, like you said, caribou or deer hunting. The 300 blackout is a revolutionary cartridge. It's yeah, as you said, it's kind of like a 7.62
Yeah,
at 39, in terms of like its ballistics and everything. But now you're able to fit what is essentially a 7.62 into an AR platform.
yeah,
And the 5.56, the main problem with it is that 5.56 relies a lot on velocity.
yeah,
So it was originally designed in order to shoot out of this 20-inch barrel of the M16. But now that everyone's, ever since the pistol brace kind of ruling came out earlier this year, everyone's been, creating AR pistols. And, they're going for shorter and shorter to get compact and, so they could possibly store it in, backpacks and things where they might not normally keep a rifle just because it's too big, but now they're able to have like 7.5-inch 300
yeah.
blackout ARs, and 300 blackout at that barrel length performs
Yeah.
way better than 5.56.
Oh yeah, way better. That's also partly due to a commercial ammo as well uses faster burning powder than a 5.56. Almost like it's designed to be used in a shorter barrel. I know like this is a completely parenthetical note, but the same company that made the 300 Blackout Q, or the guy Q, I think he made the Honey Badger, which was chairman of 300 Blackout.
He did, yes.
Made another cartridge. It's called the 8.6 Blackout, I believe.
The SPC? Is that what it's called?
No, it's just like an 8. I think it's here. I'll pull it up. But it's so basically 8.6 millimeter. That's a 338, and he designed it by taking the 6.5 Creedmoor, which we could talk about for hours, and necking that up to a 338. Here, I'll pull it up. He actually, yeah, 8.6 Blackout, also known as 8.6 BLK, is a center fire rifle cartridge designed for semi-automatic weapons. It was a 6.5 Creedmoor necked up to 8.6 millimeter. Here's the high note about it, by the way. 1 in 3 twist rate. So for every inch, it's either yeah. So it like I remember watching a video about it. The barrel almost looks like it's threaded on the inside. It looks kind of ridiculous. I remember hearing him talk about it. He was like, it has so much stopping power. It's the best thing ever. It has long range capability. The 220 grain bullet's moving out at 2,200 feet per second, and the 300 grain bullet's moving out at like 800 feet per second. Basically a pistol. Essentially a pistol. It's. I don't know what its use case would be. I could see it being okay, I guess, if you want an AR chambered in that. But I just can't imagine the use case, or I can't imagine using that over a 300 Blackout in any scenario.
I definitely think it might work out if you want a larger caliber, but you're only going to be able to do it at short distances because, as you said, what did you say? 300 grains at
like 1,800.
1,800. That's going to be dropping.
Yeah, no, it's
so.
I like I was being a complete salesman about it too. He was saying, oh, because the 300 grain, like a 300 grain 338 bullet, that has a high BC, so it doesn't have a lot of drag. Like honestly, it doesn't have a lot of drag, but that doesn't matter if it's moving at 800 feet per second. That's not my primary concern. And here's another kicker. He actually brought a 8.6 Blackout bolt action rifle to Africa and shot a Cape buffalo with it.
It worked though, right?
I don't know. There was a cutaway. There was a cutaway. There's a cutaway and a very suspicious looking exit wound.
Like of course it's probably useful and you could probably take down like big game with it. Is it the best cartridge ever? No.
Yeah, no.
Just like you can probably take down a deer with 9mm if you really wanted to.
Yeah. You could shoot a Cape buffalo with a 22 long rifle and probably kill it if you shoot it in the head.
Yeah, but are you gonna really do that? Or do you want to?
Yeah,
is that humane?
Yeah, it's just. What was actually funny about the YouTube video, I actually slowed it down Me and my dad were watching it because I was like, Dad, you have to see this guy. We were watching it. You could actually see the bullet flying through the air. That's how slow it was moving. And he was using I think he was using 210 grain bullets. They were moving out of like 2,300, which isn't isn't really that fast. It's just I just think that whole realm is so funny because the 300 Blackout came about from that same guy, and it does have some use cases. It is quite nice for what it's meant to do, but the guy put his hand a little too deep in the cookie jar.
I definitely think it would be useful if you're trying to get a lot of mass downrange,
Yeah.
but you're also trying to remain subsonic.
Yeah.
That's the one use case that I think that he looked at that for you, because he also looked at 300 Blackout that way.
Yeah.
If this is the same guy from Q, because you can get supersonic or subsonic 300 Blackout.
Yeah.
And that's perfect because if you want to run a suppressor or something, or you need to be extra quiet, then you put a suppressor on, you use some subsonic loads and things like that. I think that's what he's using for. He wanted a larger caliber so he could take out more stout game, but he also wanted to keep the velocity down so that it becomes subsonic.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I could see that. I just think it's hilarious. I was trying to sell it. If he was honest about it, or if he wasn't trying to be such a salesman about it, I would respect it. But to say it has as much stopping power to kill a Cape Buffalo, it's like, okay, dude, like what are you trying to prove?
Salesman or salesman.
Salesman or salesman. Moving on. Coolest guns, Jordan. This one, it can either be guns you own, or actually, let's go with coolest gun that you want to own. How about that?
See, I recently I actually kind of purchased a dream of mine. I purchased a SB5 MP5K clone. So I will not shell out money for real HK fucking SP5.
I can understand that.
However, I did buy a clone, and I attached the SB Tactical A5 brace onto it to keep it a pistol. And so far, I've been having a lot of fun with that when I've been going home. Shoots 9mm, of course. I always wanted a roller delay sub gun, so recently I've achieved the dream of mine. However, guns that I do not own currently that I would like to own one day. I'm a big just sub gun person.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I like that the ammo is cheap. I like to go and shoot a lot. I don't really have facilities near my house at the range where I can go 300, 400, 500 yards. So rifle rounds they're useful still, but they're not as useful in my training. My ranges only go from 50 to 100 yards.
Yeah.
So I like to keep within the pistol caliber space. And 9mm self-defensing, as long as you're versing a non-armored target. Which I mean, if somebody's breaking into my house and they have a bulletproof vest and they're armored, I might be cooked.
Yeah. Even at that point, if it's soft armor, it's still gonna hurt. It isn't like getting shot with 9mm in soft armor just isn't gonna do anything.
Yeah.
And it only lasts for so long.
Yeah, it does. But if somebody's coming in with body armor to my house,
yeah.
I really just might be cooked.
They're
not just normal. They're not normal robbers. These are some people that know what they're
some
doing.
crazy people.
And I'm probably gonna lose that gunfight. But one that I definitely want to own after I come up with a little more money and kind of make my next big purchase is definitely a Chris Vector. So I've been looking at it for a while.
I like it.
So Chris Vector, with the way that the bolt works, it goes down, it goes back, and then it goes down. So it mitigates some of the recoil. And that's a cool system and all, but when you're chambered in 9mm, it doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
It was designed for 45 ACP. But just the way that it looks, it's a little cool. Yeah. And then I would try to add on a floating stock once I SBR it and kind of just make it a little 5-inch sub gun barrel. So that's definitely the coolest gun I do not own that I definitely want to. And also maybe a crank. Just for the
What's a crank?
So AKS 74U.
AKS. Yeah.
So that one has literally no practical purpose in my life. It would be chambered. So PSA just released one earlier this year or something. It was chambered in 5.56, but the thing is, it's 5.56 with an 8.3-inch barrel. So it's basically shooting fireballs.
So it's a short barrel flamethrower.
It's a short barrel flamethrower. It's absolutely useless. Of course, if you shoot somebody with it, they're not going to have a good time. They're probably going to die. But it's like the concussion that
Yeah.
8.3-inch barrel with 5.56 produces for not only them but for you,
Yeah.
it's going to be deafening.
You
So
put
it's
like a giant fuck you muzzle brake on there.
it's absolutely useless. But they did release a 300 blackout version, and
Ooh.
300 blackout out of an 8.3-inch barrel is a lot better.
It's a lot more reasonable.
It is probably almost what 300 blackout is made for.
Yeah.
So that's a lot better. I would probably get that version.
And you put a suppressor on that thing, a holographic sight, folding. Oh, dude, that'll look awesome.
So I also want to get that. I haven't yet because I really just wanted to pull the trigger on the MP5K, just because I think it's such an iconic firearm, and it's kind of like there's a lot of accessories that are available for it. It's kind of, in terms of customizability, I'd say it's probably third. Between first is of course the AR platforms. Those are like adult Legos.
Yeah.
You can add on anything: M-LOK rails, holographic sights, switches, lights, anything. And then the AK platforms, just because that there's so many out there that a lot of companies make, like mounts. They make rails for your handguards now, things like that. So you can turn it into kind of like an AR style, like M-LOK rail. And then the MP5 platform from H&K is definitely the third most, customizable. Yeah. So I definitely wanted something like that because I already have an AR. Not really sure about getting into the AK space unless it's the crank.
I was looking at getting an AK over the summer, and it really just they look cool. Well, I think they look cool, but if you try to put an optic on it, it's a whole other issue. It's a giant mess. Anybody who says an AK is better than an AR for any reason other than reliability is completely delusional. I personally think
it's a tough decision because some budget AKs nowadays they're all chambered in 7.62 by 39, and with the war in Ukraine and everything like that, there's not a lot of 7.62 by 39 coming into the country, so it's a lot more expensive than shooting 5.56 out of an AR. Yeah. Like I believe it's 75 cents a round for 7.62 versus probably I can find on PSA like their AAC brand. I can find 5.56, just 55 grain ball for probably 45 cents a round. Yeah. So that's a 30-cent difference, and that
that adds up.
That does add up. So it's just the round's not easy to find anymore. It's not economical anymore. And AKs back then, I remember back in the 2000s. When I used to go on YouTube, you can find like an AK, a good one for probably like $300, and that's how it was. And then ammo was also stupid cheap because everything was just coming in from the old Soviet bloc and being sold in the U.S. But now, the cheapest AK you could probably find nowadays that's worth anything is from PSA. I believe it's their GF3 AK, and I think that's maybe $600 flat. And then it's just from there up, and then ammo's expensive. So the AK platform, unless you're buying like the crank from PSA, where it's chambered in like a common cartridge in the US, like 5.56 or 300 blackout, they're just not worth it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think the guns that I personally would most want to have, an FAL, like a FAL. Though I found this company, DS Arms. They make an FAL clone. They have this one. It's so cool. It has a folding stock, has an 18-inch barrel, chambered in 308, and has like the jungle jungle Rhodesia pattern on it.
Is it the DSA 58 model?
Yeah. I think they also have one chambered in a 16-inch barrel too. I want that so bad because it's personally it's everything I want. I can't really buy like an AR-10 or like an SR-25 yet. Isn't that the model that's chambered in a 308 SR-25?
I believe so.
But I can't find an AR-10 or an AR-3 or an LR-308 or like an SR-25 that's chambered in 308, smaller with a 16-inch barrel. Because that's not why people are buying those guns. They're buying them for long range shooting normally.
So they're usually getting like 20-inch barrels.
Yeah, but with this FAL that they make, I found one that's meant to be used in a jungle, and they have a direct like optics mounts for it. They make magazines. So I would just love to have one of those so bad. Those would just be awesome.
I definitely think it's very cool. I've been keeping my eye on kind of like DS Arms with their FRALs. They make one. They make a variety. It's a
Yeah.
21-inch barrel. It has wood hand guards
Yeah.
and then wood on the back, and then it has the wood foregrip, and it's called the Cuban.
Yeah.
And it has the muzzle, the flash hider that is just like so skinny and everything. It just looks absolutely so sexy.
So beautiful.
If that was like, if I had like all the money in the world and I wasn't like, I wouldn't really mess with like 308 firearms until I like start building up my collection of ARs a little more, like sub guns. Like
Yeah.
that would probably be like, that's far down the road where I start getting to 308. But once I do, I definitely think the Cuban
Yeah.
version that they have,
Yeah.
where it's all wood everywhere. Of course, it's long. It's gonna be fucking. It's gonna be a hell to try to
Yeah.
walk around, but it's just kind of fun for like a range toy.
Oh, yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah, no. I think the model I'm talking about is like the jungle. It's like a paratrooper jungle thing. It has like a Picatinny rail on the end too, so you can actually like attach lights and stuff. I just think that's so cool. I would also like a sub gun too. I think sub guns are also pretty cool. I think I would like to get an MP7. MP7 is kind of I think it's just like such a cool gun, or like a Mac 10. Yeah.
Rob, I actually have something for you.
You have something for me?
It's called the Masterpiece Arms Defender.
Masterpiece Arms Defender.
So, of course, a Mac 10, a real Mac 10, Mac 11 is going to cost you about $10,000, $15,000 to this today, just because it's fully automatic. I mean, like those before '86, they had to be registered and everything like that. However, there's a company. It's called Masterpiece Arms. They make what's called the Defender, like 90T model, I believe.
Oh yeah.
And so, yes,
it kind of looks like an MP9.
Yeah, it's supposed to look like the Mac 10, and it does. It functions like it. It has the telescopic bolt and everything that charges from the top. So it has that going for it, and all you would have to do is kind of pick out like a Picatinny mount for the back, and then you would add a brace, or you can SBR it if you want.
Yeah.
And that would be a more functional Mac 10. Of course, it's semi-automatic. But if a Mac 10 is something that you want to own, that one's probably, I think it goes on sale. It's like $500.
It's like more like reasonable to get.
It's $550.
Yeah.
And then you SBR it if you want. That's a $200 tax stamp. And then you add a stock, a Picatinny stock, for probably like another $200. Under $1,000, you have your Mac 10 fixed now.
Yeah.
Chambered in 9mm, and it was fairly easy to get. I was actually just watching a YouTube video about it, just because I was like investigating a little more after my Ep.5 purchase. What could be like the new thing that I can do?
Yeah. I just love the look of like those short little like the small like almost machine pistols, but not really. You know what I mean?
Because we can't get machine pistols now. Thank you, Reagan.
Thank you.
But I definitely think that they have a place. I don't think they're
practical. I really don't think they're practical. I just think they're cool.
You probably should not defend your family or
No,
like anything
no,
with those. But I definitely think that those are really cool range toys.
Yeah.
And you could definitely have a lot of fun with them. And sometimes like a gun does not need to be practical at all.
Yeah.
You just need to go out and have some fun. And I definitely think that for $550 plus whatever you put into like accessories and everything, it's gonna give you a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a fun gun. I like the since I mentioned the MP7, they also would like to get an MP9.
I'm not familiar with the MP9.
You know, it looks exactly kind of like the Defender, but it's like I like to think about it as here's an MP9. So it looks kind of like the Defender and a Mac 10. But it's
the
made
B&T TP9.
Yeah, TP9.
Okay. No, I've seen those. Those go for like $2,000.
Yeah, they're
crazy.
But like, oh my god, I just love that. I would just love to have it.
I definitely think that they give you, those look a little bit more like an MP7.
Yeah.
Than like a Mac 10. It would definitely give you the fix of that. However, those are easier to get than an MP7.
Oh yeah, dude. MP7s cost an arm and a dick.
I don't even,
they're hard to import too.
I don't even think they exist.
Yeah.
I think they've been lying to us the whole time.
And the ammo they use like a 5.7 by 28. It's a shouldered pistol cartridge.
I think that's what the
same thing
P90 uses.
Yeah.
I think
And the 5.7.
I think it's 4.6 by 30 is what the MP7 shoots.
Really?
And that's like a very niche cartridge. I have not seen it.
And it costs an arm and a leg too.
I've seen it online, and it costs probably around 95 cents to like 110 around.
Yeah, it's a preposterous. And from what I've been like, I was actually looking in a 5.7 by 28 at least, and apparently it doesn't really do much better than a 9mm, which makes sense because it's a 21. It's basically a 21 or a 20. Well, 5.7, 5.5. It'd probably be like a 23 caliber bullet. And it just really doesn't, out of a pistol, it just doesn't really do much.
See, the whole thing is back in the 90s, NATO was trying to kind of adopt a new pistol cartridge for what is called a PDW, personal defense weapon. And so H&K, and I believe FN Herstal, they created the P90 with the 5.7 by 28, and then HK created the 4.6 by 30. And the requirement was that it had to get through a certain type of Russian body armor. It wasn't like the hard stuff that they had.
Russians make body armor?
The Russians at the time made body armor, and they wanted to get through that. But it wasn't the full grade body armor. It was like a very in-depth Kevlar vest that had to get through. And so what they found out is that 9mm was not significant in getting through that kind of body armor. But when they increased the velocity, in words by decreasing the bullet weight and making it, not a big fat pistol round, but instead making it like a miniature rifle round.
Yeah.
It was able to penetrate through that body armor and kind of go about it that way. Now, in practicality, in civilian use, as I told you, if anyone is coming into your house with wearing body armor and things, you're in a lot more trouble than you probably think you are. So they're not coming alone if they're wearing body armor.
Also, who's robbing houses with wearing
full
body
siege?
Armor? Yeah,
like full siege.
Yeah, like what is this? Like, is like we're not going to give you recommendations for if the FBI is raiding your house.
Like
if you're in Waco and you have to get through some body armor.
I think it's the gun tubers always on YouTube that are saying about like how you need stopping power and how like body armor could possibly be a very like big problem for you if you're choosing pistol rounds as a way to kind of go out and defend yourself. But again, if somebody's coming into your house and you are using a pistol caliber round and they have body armor on and they came in with body armor, they're probably coming in with a couple other people.
Yeah, I don't think having a 5.56 or a 308 or a shotgun is really going to make that much of a difference.
With AR-15s, you probably will lose that fight, unfortunately. If you got yourself in that situation.
Yeah, like if people are raiding your house wearing body armor, there's an issue.
Where somebody's coming into your house like a SWAT team.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't think, like, body armor penetration is very useful in the civilian space.
I don't think that's a useful metric. And I think in most scenarios, I mean, like, you're not going to be covering your entire body with body armor. And a lot of people think that there's only arteries in your chest and nowhere else. Like, getting shot in the hip is just like, oh, it's a flesh wound. No, it's like that's a big thing. You got the iliacs down there.
It hurts.
Yeah. And it also cripples you, too. So like the big point is that it really doesn't matter that much armor penetration for a PDW round. In all honesty, for what most people are going to be using it for, it doesn't really matter all that much. Which was the main selling point of like the FN57, of like the 4.8 or which one?
4.6 HK.
Of the 4.6 HK. They're basically trying to say we have this pistol round, it's shouldered, which already makes it a chambering issue. Already makes it more expensive to make. It's also a weirdly sized bullet, like a 4.3 millimeter bullet, like 4.6 millimeter bullet. And that's less than a 22 caliber bullet. It's insane.
I definitely think that those are useful because remember that those were the armies were trying to adopt that.
Yeah.
So that's a different thing than the civilian space.
A completely different thing.
The MP7 might have some utility over in like NATO and going across countries, and if you're like a tanker and you just need like something better than a pistol, it's probably better for you. However, if you're a Joe Schmo living in the middle of Pennsylvania here, um, you don't need a MP7.
Yeah.
It's probably not practical. You should probably go with the BMT TP9.
Yeah.
That's chambered to 9mm. It looks just as cool, and you can actually get it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's. But yeah. Yeah. No, it's always interesting what the gun tubers say. I think it's so interesting. I remember watching this one video by a Garand Thumb. That guy.
I love that guy.
I think he's cool. There's been some allegations coming out though. There's some funny allegations with him, but I just hate all those gun tours that make everything uber tactical and just can't talk about it. I like watching Hickok 45. You know, I like watching this old dude shoot watermelons and soda bottles with this random gun that Bud's Gun Shops gave him.
Yeah,
and just
that's realistic. Like having like a whole bit of land over in Montana, like
wearing full LARP gear and
like having like 50 acres in the middle of Montana that you can shoot like 1,000 meters out from, and you're testing the accuracy. I'm never going to be able to do that. I will never have that much land. And so Hickok 445 being in the back of his backyard, shooting at watermelons and soda cans, he comes off a little fuddish.
Yeah.
But I think it's more realistic than your anthem in the middle of Montana, 1,000 yards out.
Yeah. Then you're wearing like a $20,000 night vision goggles setup. Have you seen how much those things cost?
Yeah, they're like $20K.
They're insane. This guy's just walking around his range wearing that. I would have that in my safe. It's insane.
A mortgage, man.
Yeah, dude, I got a mortgage.
What the hell are we getting $20,000 night vision goggles for?
Oh my god!
Just put a weapon light on your AR.
It's these freaking gun tubers, man. All right, next item on the docket. First time shooting. Have a story about that, or do you just remember?
I remember. It was actually I just turned 18. So before then, I was only messing really with like BBs and airsoft rifles and things like that. My parents, they're not anti-gun. However, they just my dad never got into it because his dad was never into it, and so on and so forth. Like they were really about the life. So I never really got exposed that much. But they let me have a BB gun and let me have like an airsoft gun that I can go shoot cans as a kid. But first time I ever really went to the range was I had just turned 18, and my buddy had just acquired a rifle. I believe it was a PSA AR-15, like the $500, like, very basic. And he invited me out. He's like, oh, just give me like $25, and you can shoot like a couple rounds, and we can all just have a great time. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. And so I went out and I loaded up my round, and for 5.56, I was not expecting recoil to feel like that. So the first time I ever experiencing recoil, I was taken aback. And then you kind of just put your shoulder stock onto your shoulder a little more, and you kind of just hunker down, and all of a sudden it becomes like so much more controllable when you're not flinching every time. I thought it was great. He showed me how to like shoot out to distance a little bit, so I was hitting targets at like 100. And it was just an overall great experience. And ever since then, I've kind of been getting more and more into the gun space. Into the Second Amendment community and watching YouTube videos and being as informed as possible. Of course, I'm a college student right now, so I don't have the most money in the world.
You're not gonna buy your Chris Vector.
No, yeah, maybe once I pass my boards.
Just gotta put that on the student loans. It's fine.
Maybe once I pass my boards, I will. But so yeah, I'm kind of just getting all the information right now, so that when I do get money after I do pass my boards and I actually become like a real adult, that I'm able to kind of, live the way I want to.
Involved.
Yeah.
I remember my first time shooting, I was like 3. And my grandfather gave me, he had like, I think it was a python. It was like it was like a Colt python. Yeah. I think.
He let a 3-year-old shoot that?
Well, not by myself. He was kind of like holding it up for me. But it was my first time like shooting it, and like, it was like so fun. We had like a target set up back there. I remember it actually very vividly. and I was like hitting the target. It was at like 10 yards, but like that's what started it all was that, and that's kind of the shooting that I prefer. I don't really I don't really appreciate the tactical like maneuvering
Oh, when you're going through
bullshit.
when you're going through the courses, shoot already, beep.
Yeah,
Going through all of
it's
that.
like I just really I just think that's such. Well, I can understand the competition side of it, but I just feel really stupid. I think I would feel really stupid doing that.
I'd rather just sit at the bench, just putting like shots out of 50 on like
Yeah,
a paper target or something. Like,
yeah,
it's not that serious.
yeah. I actually got into long range shooting my first year down here, or my first year down here. My dad got into long range shooting, so I had to get into it, right? And we joined this gun club with 1,000 yard range, and so I've been slowly but surely getting better at hand loading my cartridges and like shooting. So now I'm at the point now where my gun, it'll group like a third of an MOA at 100 yards. Yeah, and I can shoot out to consistently 700 yards, like no matter the wind.
On
And
a
if the
human-sized target.
yeah,
Okay.
well they have like a sheep out there. It's like it's mostly hunting, but they have like a sheep out there at like 700 yards, and I absolutely destroy every time. And then they have this like huge 1,000 yard plate. Hit that every or whenever it's not windy, I hit that. Right. I remember one time over the summer actually, I was actually kind of going crazy. They they had like this 5 inch plate out at 1,000 yards, and I was shooting my 7 millimeter Remington Magnum, um, which, well, if anyone knows, it's a 300 Win Mag necked down. Um, so it's very popular long range hunting cartridge. Um, and I was like shooting at 1,000 yards. I was getting mildly tight groups. I say mildly tight. I was getting a 5 inch group at 1,000 yards, which I think is pretty good. But I was like I'm gonna see whether I can hit this 5 inch plate. You know, since I'm shooting a 5 inch group and the wind is fine and it's all landing in the same spot. I launched one round out. I hit it smack dab in the middle, first shot of like actually trying to shoot at it. I was kind of taken aback. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not. I ain't no Chris Kyle, right? but but that's going to show my like evolution in the space, going from shooting like a 357 at 10 yards with my grandfather, and just all that development, all that effort, all that experience I have hand loading and hunting and shooting. All this kind of pays off in the end.
It's
Yeah.
it's fun. It's fun to go out and shoot at like 1,000 yards and things like that. It's a challenge, and kind of getting to know like the different windages and different hand loads, as you say, like
Yeah.
that. It's definitely fun. It's definitely for sport, and it's a great way to spend like a random afternoon or a random morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Next question. Cool gun ideas. Brainstorming. What could be the next design
So
of a
that,
gun?
see,
It's a big question.
see, that's tough. That's very tough. If I were to have my choice in anything, as I said, I like the way that the HK works, the MP5. So what I would do, and these are all within the realm of possibilities. Like anyone could do this really if they really wanted to. I can't because I'm not a gunsmith. But what I would do is I'd put the roller delay action from MP5, G3, whatever from HK, and I would put that into the AR platform.
Ooh,
So I would make,
yeah.
you know how they have the long stroke, short stroke, like PSA Jackal, um, PSA Jackal, and like those other uppers that they do. Why not make an upper that's roller delay?
I like that idea. I like
And
that
so,
idea.
of course, it's a different manual arms, and then you're able to integrate a last round bolt hold open. I don't know how they would do it,
Yeah.
but you would just do it, and then you just press the handle, and then you slap it down, and it a roller delay. The HK53, I believe, is the 5.56 version of the G3, and so what they did is they pretty much did that. It was they scaled down the G3, which was in 308, and they scaled it down all the way to a 5.56. And the way that 5.56 kind of just bounced, and it was very controllable. I just I just think that that would be a very cool idea that they could do, kind of creating like an HK upper. Of course, it looks like an AR-15. I mean, there would just be like cuts
Yeah.
somewhere, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you would just pull it back, and then it has a last round bolt open. But you still get all the controls of an AR, the ergonomics and everything like that. And I think it'd just be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it is possible to make different styles of AR uppers. I know they have like a bolt action AR upper, so you can turn like an AR that's compatible with the upper, in like a long range rifle because it really only matters with the barrel and the bolt face fitment.
Yeah.
You know, but I like that idea. I like that idea. So my general idea with it, um, I don't really have a general gun like mechanism idea. I'm more focused on the cartridges. I like cartridges more generally. I think it's more interesting to me. Um, but to give some preface about the design, SIG actually came out and the military adopted this new round and rifle, the XM4. It's chambered in a 277 Fury, also known as a 6.8 by 51.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about it is that the back of it is steel, the front of it's brass, and it's connected by the two. Now, what this allows you to do, this allows you to push it to a higher pressure than most other cartridges. Most other cartridges, I believe, operate around like 60,000 pascals or kilopascals, I guess. But of this one operates around like 110, I believe. So it's cooking, and it gets out of a 16-inch barrel, it gets 3,200 feet per second with a 270 or with a 270 bullet, which is already a good bullet for long range in general. Like you look at the long range hunting cartridges, it's like have like 270 Weatherby, you have 270 WSM, you have your 7mm. All of these are great hunting cartridges. What I would do is I would take that mechanism, and I would up it to like a 30 cal. Get a 30 cal operating at 110 out of a 16-inch barrel. 16-inch barrel. Just imagine. Just imagine for a moment.
I think it would be a very cool cartridge. However, for its use case, it might be overkill.
It would be, but it would be awesome.
I think the U.S. Army. I've heard about the XM4, with the 277 Fury, and they developed it in order to be able to kind of beat the new body armor that's out.
Yeah.
And so they needed the increased pressure to do increased velocity so that they can also increase the weight and just the energy entirely so it can penetrate through that body armor.
Yeah. Better at long range, more energy, more armor penetration. Overall, it is a move. It is a step, in a measurable in every number that's measurable with it. It's a step up from the 5.56. But what you don't really get with the 6.8 by 51 is that it costs more, heavier, recoils more, guns heavier, everything's heavier. It's just all heavier.
Yeah.
As opposed to your normal M4.
No, that's the thing though. When they created the 5.56 and then the M16 only weighed, and it only had a 20-inch barrel. It weighed probably like 6.5 pounds.
Yeah.
And you were carrying around a full battle load of maybe like a good 180 rounds that you can carry. For this one, for the Fury, my issue is I know that we've kind of moved away in like the U.S. Army and the military forces. We've moved away from the doctrine of like full auto fire. Yeah. Now you're mostly going on semi-auto fire unless shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
But back in Vietnam, they were going full auto almost all the time because
it
was a jungle.
Yeah.
But now we're going against places in the Middle East and places that are a little more spread out and they don't have trees, so you can definitely reach out a lot more. So I definitely think the 6.8 is a good idea. However, with all the like attachments that people are putting on it, like scopes and lights and everything,
suppressor.
You are making a rifle that is on par in weight to the M1 Garand.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said about increasing the weight on a soldier's performance, especially in the hot desert sun. Yeah. So while I think it's a very good idea to make this cartridge so that you could beat body armor and you could reach out a little further. I think there's something to be said that maybe this should be in a more specialized role.
Yeah. I know they aren't rolling out to everybody. I know they're rolling out to some people and not others, which, I mean, makes sense. You have millions of M4s out there. You're not just going to replace them overnight.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. I also hear that they're changing, so you know how they have like the 50 cal machine guns?
Yeah.
Apparently they're changing it down to like a 338 Norma, which is actually a 338 Norma is actually a lot more powerful than 338 Lapua. Believe it or not, Lapua the 338 Lapua. Once I got into hand loading more and I actually looked at the velocities, comparing it, honestly, not that much. It shoots a 300 grain bullet out of like 2,700 feet per second, which fast enough. Yeah, like it's a 338 Lapua, right? But the 338 Norma, I think it moves out of like 28 or 29. You know, and they're putting this on a machine gun. So so what I'm noticing with the whole military is moving towards long range prowess, not just merely amount of fire or weight of bullet. It's moving more towards how effective is it out at like 400 yards, 500 yards, 600 yards.
Isn't it funny how it works though? Because 100 years ago, the military doctrine was also the 30-06.
Yeah.
And being able to hit something out to like 500, 600, 700 yards.
Yeah.
And then we got away from that because of like the jungles and just the need.
Now we're right back there again.
And now we're right back to this rifle needs to hit out 600, 700 feet. And we're like, oh god. But watch how it's gonna go all the way back again. We're gonna get into something new.
Yeah, we're gonna get into like another jungle war, and we're gonna go right back. It's just interesting how it all evolved. And even looking at the 30-06, that was, if you like look at what people were saying about the 30-06 back when it was like the cartridge, people were saying it was obscenely powerful. It was the most obscene cartridge, just more than you would ever need.
I mean, at the time, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, at the time it was the most powerful cartridge like made, really. Now it's kind of, I mean, it's not nothing, but it's kind of compared to everything else. Yeah,
it's been left behind by technology.
Yeah, it's been left behind. It's still a good cartridge, but it's just been. It's been there are better cartridges out there. It does everything mediocre, which for most people is okay. But you can't really find anything chambered in 30-06 anymore for ARs or.
Oh.
Yeah,
definitely not for
you probably find I know
a bolt action.
You like an HCOM, the heavy combat like assault rifle by Colorado Ordnance or whatever.
Ohio Ordnance. The basically the BAR, but they made it modern.
Yeah. They modernized the BAR. That's chambered at 30-06.
That's heavy as shit, though.
Yeah. It weighs like 18 pounds.
Yeah, no, I'm not taking that shit around.
You're not looking at through the jungle.
Hell no, man.
And even then, you get better everything out of a 308 compared to like a 30-06. Even they're both pretty comparable.
I'd rather trek an M14 through the jungle.
Honestly, yeah.
And that was ass. But
all right, where do you think the future of guns is moving towards? This is our last question, but
as you alluded to earlier with the 277 Fury, I definitely think two different metals in one cartridge.
Yeah.
So that you can get increased pressure is where the near term is coming. So if in the next 10 to 15 to 20 years, that's where it's going to be at. And that's all that everyone's going to focus on. Getting so that you can increase the pressure more so you can increase velocity. Where it goes to after that, I know they're probably going to do some like weird stuff like laser beams or something. It's going to get
like a rail gun.
It's definitely going to get very weird in like 30 to 40 years. But as for the future of firearms, I definitely think dual metal ammo is the future.
Yeah, I think that's where it's all going. I think that's what people realize now. I know, I remember back in the 80s and 90s, they were doing all like the weird guns stuff. They were doing like rapid bursts. They were doing like the ones where I think it was like there's the one gun that's in Black Ops 1.
It was the AN-94 from Battlefield 4.
Dude, AN-94. Like, I remember watching a video about that. You know they have a pulley system?
Yeah.
It's a pulley system inside it. That's just absurd. Well, I think that the future of firearms is also going into dual metal cartridges, but I also think bullet design is getting more and more advanced. In the hunting world, you have like monolithic copper bullets like Barnes that expand to a certain point and then just punch through. You have the trophy bonded bear claws from Federal, which is like both. Have the A frames from Swift, which is like a nozzle partition but strong. I think we're going to see a lot more complex bullet construction than we do see now.
You know what I want to see? I want to see 5.56, but they do the dual like metals.
Yeah.
So they
So,
put some
like
steel
a higher
on it.
pressure.
Yeah, 5.56 at a higher pressure, and then see what happens. See if that's able to penetrate through body armor. Because I told you about the whole thing about them carrying around a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And everything. If they could fix that and still get through body armor with like
Like a reasonable barrel life and a reasonable recoil and weight.
yeah, and they would probably just have to change the uppers.
Yeah.
On all their military rifles in order to accommodate the increased pressure. I definitely think that's. Come on, somebody do it. 5.56, but make it dual metal. And then just make it's going to be a different caliber because of the pressures.
Yeah.
But just so it can fit in an AR-15, and you would just have to create a new upper.
Yeah.
And so all those M4s that are tricked out of everything, all you got to do is buy the uppers. You already have the lowers and everything, and all the accessories that can fit on it, and just change it.
Yeah. Well, Jordan, it was a wonderful conversation. Always fun talking guns with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.